You're out of storage.
I'll explain that later. That doesn't matter. Hello. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. We've got some deep dive details. There are your 3 Ds of this episode. We've got some deep dive details on the disaster in Ohio. Some stuff you're really not hearing from not just your mainstream media, but from many other people as well. We also are going to, so we're gonna dig into that and really get into that. But we also have information on the U.S. being a little more, each day we get a little more linked to killing Haiti's president. So there's that, and a bunch of other stories. So let's get going. Let's do it.
I'm Eleanor, by the way.
I was doing the intros first to the stories. Then I say, please welcome Eleanor Goldfield.
It's weird to talk about what we're going to talk about before you say who's going to be talking about it. You know what I mean?
Well, you intro me.
Well, I wasn't the one talking. Intro yourself.
I'm joined by Eleanor Goldfield, who's a ray of sunshine.
You know what? I am a ray of sunshine. Also, I'm not crying. My eyes are really watery right now. I don't know why. It's just so beautiful to be here with everyone. Okay. I really don't know why they're watery.
I don't like the sarcasm in the tone of that comment.
Well, it is beautiful. It's just not like cry beautiful.
Fair enough. All right. So before we play this clip, in a minute, we're going to play a clip of a railroad worker. Going to have fun with that in a minute. Talking about some of the reasons Ohio has happened. And I don't think I need to tell you guys what's going on in Ohio. Obviously, massive train derailment, toxic chemicals. They did a quote unquote controlled burn that is completely out of control. People are getting headaches, nosebleeds, skin rashes, all this shit. Yes, there are also some things that have been exaggerated. You know, some people are like, oh, all the fish have died for 100 miles. And apparently yes, there have been some fish die-offs, but not for 100 miles. So the truth is often in between some of these things, but even the in-between is fucking horrific, and we should not be okay with it. So in a minute, I'm going to play a clip that you found because Eleanor is an amazing researcher. And
you didn't have to give me credit. That's okay, but thank you.
You did. You found all this shit. So
well, no, I know, but I wasn't expecting,
I got you this award. It's some gum, which I'm not going to advertise the brand of because I don't want people to think that I...
It's also a Maraca.
So we're going to play that clip in a minute, but we're going to do that one after the clip. But, oh yeah, I guess we should do all this after the clip. All right, we'll do it all after the clip. Let's just play the clip. Fuck it. Unless you have anything you want to say before the clip.
No, I think it's best to let it speak for itself.
All right.
It being the clip.
This clip is about 3 minutes long. I might be able to speed it up a bit, but trust me, it's worth it. This guy knows his shit, and you're gonna appreciate it. So let's do it.
When you're driving a car down the road, you're either going uphill, downhill, or flat. On a train, we don't have that luxury. Your train may be going uphill, downhill, flat, uphill again, downhill again. Depends on how long your train is and what kind of territory you're running in. That's why locomotive engineers are federally licensed professionals. They understand how to keep the entire train moving at the exact same speed at the exact same time, even if the train is 10, 11, 12, 13, 14,000 feet long. They may be braking on the head end and pushing on the rear. They may be stretching with air set. There's all kinds of techniques to keep the entire train moving at the exact same speed at the exact same time. Now, typically, the longer a train is, the more difficult it is to manage this slack throughout the train. And it also makes the problem worse when there's a catastrophic failure. And that lies at the root of the problem for what caused the East Palestine derailment to be as bad as it was. See, there was a mechanical failure, and the train derailed. One car derailed. Now, when this derailment occurred, there was a massive slack run in, because when you lose your air, all of a sudden the locomotive engineer has no control over the state of slack in the train, whether the train is stretched or bunched. It's at the mercy of the tonnage of the train. Now, the train that derailed was 12,000 feet long, and this hazardous material was near the rear of the train, and the locomotive engineer has no control over what that slack is doing when a train that big decides to derail. Now, this lies at the root of the problem of what railroad employees have been talking about for over a year. The greed of an industry that wants to buy back their own shares, cut employees, and cut maintenance, making their trains longer and longer and longer in complete disregard as to where the hazardous material is and to how bad the derailment will be if there's a mechanical catastrophic failure, which happened in this incident. Now, had that hazardous material been riding a train that was smaller, more easy to manage in the event of a catastrophic failure, maybe 50 cars wouldn't have piled up. It's highly likely that 1 or 2 cars would have derailed, the rest of it would have come to a stop. But we had to line Wall Street's pockets. We had to buy back more shares. We had to increase the dividend by making the shares longer. And in complete disregard for the general public, we stuck hazardous material on the end of a 12,000-foot train. No matter what part of America you live in, if you have trains nearby you, you should be asking your federal regulators why these trains are able to put hazardous material onto unmanageable 12, 13, 14, 15,000-foot trains. The residents of East Palestine, Ohio, are evacuated. Fish in the rivers are dead. They've come home to dead pets. Where's this going to happen next, America?
So there you have it. All impressive points. Some of you may, oh, Jesus.
You just love putting shit over my face.
Some of you may have already known some of it, but I hadn't thought about the fact that obviously you can't just be the front car of a train and just go with a 2.5-mile train behind you and just it'll work itself out. Like, no, there's a lot of shit that has to go right for that train to travel that way.
Well, and as he pointed out, this is why railroad work. You know what? I can't.
So for those of you who don't know, we have a bit of a history on this. Eleanor can't say the words railroad workers, no matter how hard.
It's fucking
and
dumb.
I don't.
You don't put that many R's next to a W.
Were you like slapped or humiliated by a railroad worker as a kid or something? Like, is there some sort of mental hang up?
Nothing but good connections with
with those things,
with those workers. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I'm just gonna call them RRWs. So this RRW is saying this is
you can say rail workers, right?
What was that?
You can say
what
rail workers. Can you say
all right.
That was mature.
So what this guy is saying is that that's why it's so fucking important that these workers are so well trained and that there's enough of them to make these calls and to actually be on site and making these decisions. Like, of course you shouldn't put that much toxic material at the back of the train, but if you don't know that, if you don't have enough people checking these fucking things, then this is going to happen. And there's already been another train derailment in Michigan since I believe this happened yesterday or perhaps the day before.
I have news on that, but go ahead.
Okay. But sticking on this, we'll get to that in a second. There is.
Well, we can just throw it in here.
Okay.
Michigan train derailment. This is all I was going to say. Michigan train derailment, one of more than 1,000 each year. So
right,
there you go. Another one just happened.
I don't know if CBS News, like while reporting this, was trying to make it so that people would be less freaked out, but this actually like makes it sound way worse. Like, oh, okay, so there's 998 other of these that we're not hearing about.
Yeah. Don't worry, Michigan. You're one of 1,000.
Yeah.
Don't
not special.
Don't feel special. Exactly.
So basically, the U.S. Department of Transportation has made has reported that there are over 1,000 derailments each year since 2019. Interestingly enough, the massive amount of layoffs and restructuring started happening around 2019. I wonder if there's a correlation between firing a bunch of specialized fucking workers and having a bunch of train derailments that potentially release chemical toxins into our ecosystems. I wonder if there's a connection there.
But you're forgetting the positive. Norfolk Southern boosted shareholder payouts 4,500% as they slashed the workforce.
I mean, I would just like to say congrats to their shareholders because that's just really wonderful.
Well, you know what that smell is in the air? That's money. That's the smell of money. Sweet, sweet money.
The skin rash and the difficulty breathing,
Yes.
That's money.
Yep.
So basically, so this I didn't know this, so apologies if you already knew this. You might be seeing around PSR, that acronym, and it stands for Precision Scheduled Railroading. And it is a controversial management approach that prioritizes profit at the expense of all else. Wouldn't say that that's, I mean, I guess it's controversial in the sense that the shareholders think it's fine.
That sounds like, what's the word? Oh, capitalism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, it mandates that trains transport bigger and heavier loads with fewer workers. Hence, this situations. So trains went from 80 to 90 rail cars supported by 5 workers to 2 workers overseeing 150 rail cars or more. What the fuck?
You know what this reminds me of is when the BP Horizon created the largest oil spill ever or whatever in the Gulf of Mexico. There'd been like 2 inspectors in charge of inspecting 1,000 different oil wells around the country. I mean, it was like 2 inspectors who were supposed to do over the entire year, supposed to do 1,000 different oil sites or something. So it was like each of them were supposed to do like 3 a day and never take a day off. And it was utterly impossible. It's like all they could do is drive by and be like, looks good. And like, or boat by, sail by.
Sail by. God, please tell me they sailed.
But it's this thing where it's like the number of so-called inspectors is they can do nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And whenever you want me to read this, let me know.
Well, I can read it too if you want, but
Well,
so
pull it up then.
yes. So basically, and this is what the guy in the video was saying, that these RRWs have been pointing this out for quite some time, and before Biden made it illegal to strike, this is what they were threatening to go on strike about. Not just paid sick leave and basic workers' rights, but the fact that this was going to happen. This was always going to happen. And they knew that conditions were unsafe, and they knew that they didn't have the capacity. They were working, shifts that would last 20 hours, and they'd get a 4-hour break before they were expected to go fucking back to work. So it's like they knew. I had an interview with a former rail worker, and he said that there was
just point to me. Just point to me, and
Okay.
I'll yell rail workers.
And he was saying to me that there was a guy who had a heart attack while he was doing some important maneuvering. I don't really understand what it is, but because I'm not a fucking specialized
railroad,
I can't count on you. I can't count
rail
on you.
Worker. I was
Sitting
drinking.
there drinking coffee, and I'm trying to make a point over here.
Having a sip of my coffee.
God damn it!
Can't even stop for coffee. This is some real slave labor going on here. I can't even pause for a coffee.
No, you can't. And so the guy had wanted to take time off to go to the doctor because he had chest pains. Oh, he couldn't. He had a fucking heart attack. And luckily, the guy was saying, for everyone else involved, luckily, he wasn't in charge of like a train like this when it happened. So he died and no one else was hurt. But it could easily have been hundreds, maybe thousands of people affected by the fact that corporate greed meant that that this guy couldn't go to the fucking doctor, and
or have a sip of coffee.
No, that's irrelevant. You get no coffee for you. And I also wanted to point out that while I believe, what was it? So it would cost roughly $2.7 billion estimated by Bloomberg, which they're not known for overestimating on the environmental side of things. Bloomberg estimates that the cleanup costs for the Ohio River would be $2.7 billion.
From this one accident.
And that sounds like a shit ton, but it is less than 15% that Norfolk Southern spent on stock repurchases last year.
There you go. They got the money. Maybe they'll clean it up, right? Because it's easy to get toxic chemicals out of a river. It's not a big thing at all. You get like a pool skimmer, and you can just get it right up out of there.
Yeah. And does anybody want to in the chat here take a guess at how much Norfolk Southern is actually going to have to pay up for this shit?
Yeah, I mean, they probably will pay some kind of fine, but it'll probably be what they spend to have their balls greased every Tuesday. Like, it's not going to be a big
That's
deal to them.
expensive, huh?
No,
I wouldn't know. I don't have any.
Well, I've never paid for a ball greasing.
Oh, really? You're missing out. Apparently.
Am I?
It sounds relaxing. Better than a ball waxing.
Man, you took my line and you've just driven it into the ground. I don't know what's happening now. All right, so let's read from this, and this is so cool. You found this, or you
because I'm on their newsletter
you,
list.
You knew
I'm on their mailing list.
You knew to check the railroad workers newsletter, and they have a great analysis of what's going on. And you can go ahead.
Well, we've highlighted different things. Do you want to?
Well, yours is within.
That's true.
So then just read this one.
This one? Or this one? You want me to read off your computer?
Yes.
Okay.
Because this highlighting is more.
No, I know. I just didn't want to make it feel too much like story time, but that's fine. So
just say it with passion.
Okay, you don't have to tell me how to do my lines here. Jesus. What are you, fucking Quentin Tarantino over here? Okay. Well, now I can't read it. It's too small. God, killing me. So this is from the RWU. That's the
Rail Workers.
No, the
Union?
railroad workers.
You said RWU. That's
Yes.
one R.
No, because railroad is one word.
But you were saying RRW to mean railroad workers.
Because it had a nice...
All right. Let's move along.
RWU stands for...
Railroad Workers Union.
United.
Oh, United. Oh my God. We're coming off as so high during this episode. Will you just...
I'm really not, though.
I know.
I just can't say the word. Okay. And that actually the video that you saw was also from their Twitter. So really great accounts to follow if you are interested in reading more about it. So they write in this newsletter, an inter-union alliance of rail workers argued Tuesday that the massive freight train crash in I'm going to say Palestine, because they're mispronouncing it on purpose.
Fuck that town.
Fuck it. Well, not fuck that town, but fuck mispronouncing it so people don't think about Palestine.
Got it.
It was a predictable consequence.
Do they call themselves Palestinians, you think?
East Palestinians.
East Palestinians?
Oh, East Palestinian Ohioans? What do you call someone from Ohio? Is it Ohioan?
That sounds right.
Okay. It was a
Ohio ogres?
Ohioese?
Yeah.
It was a predictable consequence of Wall Street-backed policy decisions that have hollowed out the industry's workforce, pushed remaining employees to chronic exhaustion, and sacrificed safety for profits, just what we were talking about. I need you to
Railroad Workers United, the RWU,
wrote that, quote, the root causes of this wreck are the same ones that have been singled out repeatedly, associated with the hedge fund-initiated operating model known as Precision Scheduled Railroading, PSR. Now, everyone, this next line, sit down. Just hold on to something. The group noted that the immediate cause of the wreck appears to have been a 19th century style mechanical failure of the axle on one of the cars, an overheated bearing, leading to derailment and then jackknifing tumbling cars.
And this was reported in mainstream media as well, that they looked at video and found that the axle had overheated.
So, okay, but 19th century style, like not in like a cool hipstery kind of way, like a catastrophic fucking kind of way. Quote, there is no way in the 21st century, save from a combination of incompetence and disregard to public safety, that such a defect should still be threatening our communities, wrote RWU, which supports nationalization of the U.S. rail system. Quote, 40% of the weight of NS-32N, that was the train, was grouped at the rear third of the train, which has always been bad practice and made more dangerous with longer, heavier trains, the statement continued. Quote, this fact almost certainly made the wreck dynamically worse, but increasingly the PSR-driven carriers, driven to cut costs and crew time by any means necessary, cut corners and leave crews at the public at risk, end quote. So this is basically just a kind of a more compact version of what we were sharing through the video and the other reporting, that this was always going to happen. RWU and the unions that they work with have been saying this for a long time, and that the nationalization of the railroad system is something that they've been calling for because it would demand necessarily that profits are not the driver of policy regarding rail systems. And they've been, of course, completely ignored. And this is not just, for me, I wanted to share this not just because it's reporting on what happened with this train, but what will continue to happen. Like, this is common practice. There are trains all crisscrossing the US right now, all over the fucking place, that are in exactly the same position as this one, rear loaded with extremely hazardous chemicals, operated by far too few people who have been overworked and underpaid. And it's just going to keep happening. And it's actually a fucking miracle that it hasn't happened more.
Yeah. And while this exact thing has not happened that often, the bomb trains exploding has happened fairly frequently, and they get like a blip in the mainstream media. This one, we didn't even hear. Most people didn't even hear about this one. I mean, I didn't, and for like a week, until they started that controlled burn off of the toxic chemicals. So like you said, there's 1,000 derailments a year, and we hear about how many of them? Like, how many of them are making mainstream national news?
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, and so to get to a deeper layer, which I always like to dig a little deeper, even than some of the things that are independent media, this comes down to capitalism. Like, this is how capitalism works. It is the gravity of capitalism towards profit, no matter what else happens. So it is decrease the number of people you got to pay to investigate these things, decrease the number of cleanup people, increase the number of hours people work, increase the number of cars that are all on one train. All of that is the gravity of capitalism. That's where it leads us time and again, is towards more and more of this shit. And there also was a massive town hall where people were furious. And at the last minute, Norfolk Southern didn't show up, when the whole kind of point was that they were going to be there
to answer questions and confront the angry masses. But of course, then they were like, oh, the angry masses? Actually, no, we're going to stay in our gold-plated yachts and not show up.
And yeah, they realized, oh, this might look bad as people like hold us accountable for what we've done to their fucking town. So, anything else on that one?
Nope. I think that's it. Oh,
yeah.
just again, follow Railroad Workers United.
Boom.
On Instagram and Twitter, and you can also sign up for their newsletter if you go to their website as to stay in the loop. They have got they obviously have a lot of important commentary on this situation, but also have some really great resources to learn more about what their demands are.
I wonder if there's like a whale road.
What?
Workers, like a road that the whales use, and there's a bunch of workers. So I wonder if they're able to say the name of their.
Oh, are you saying that to help me out so I could actually start saying whale? No, but see, then I just make it all W's. I'd say railroad workers.
Someone in the chat put, this is very scary.
It is very scary. Thank you.
Okay, so. By the way, so we're getting the next story here. The U.S. continued to being increasingly being linked to the assassination of another country's president. But before I do that real quick, please hit subscribe, hit follow if you're on Rumble, hit thumbs up, leave a comment, even if you don't have much to say, throw it in there because it helps the algorithm and all that shit that we fucking got to deal with. So please do that and become a member at leecamp.net to support this show. All right. So I'm actually going to read from the New York Times, but I'll tell you what they're not really what they're not really acting like. It's
This
interesting.
is a big moment, folks, because Lee breaks out in a rash every time he reads something for New York Times. So he's doing this
I do.
for
I do.
y'all. So
I break out in hives every time I hear
bust out the oatmeal bath in a second.
the name New York Times. So they actually do say the stuff, but they just act like it's not a big deal, which is kind of hilarious. Another angle of propaganda.
Are we doing a media literacy lesson? I love
Yes.
these.
Yeah, well, always. So the U.S. has just arrested 4 more in the assassination of Haiti's president. And most of you know, well, it's down here. President Moise was shot 12 times when a team of Spanish-speaking commandos stormed his home outside the Haitian capital in July 2021. Prosecutors said a plot to overthrow and ultimately kill him was hatched in South Florida by businessmen who hoped to reap lucrative contracts under a new administration. So federal agents arrested 4 men, these 4 more men, they've already arrested some, who, and this is just the other day, who they accused of playing key roles in the assassination of Haiti's former president, U.S. prosecutors said, the latest step in an investigation that implicated several American citizens. Federal court documents also stated that several conspirators in the assassination of President Moise of Haiti met with the FBI a few months before the killing and tried to draw agents into a discussion about regime change in Haiti.
Tried to draw. Okay, so I just like to comment on this framing here.
Tried to
draw them into a conversation, not even action, but draw them into a conversation as if this isn't something that the U.S. has been doing and has been thinking since Haiti won its independence in 1804? Since the advent of Haiti as a free nation, the U.S. has been drawn into that conversation. So the idea that they would have to draw people in from a federal bureau into a conversation about regime change, but in Haiti is hilarious.
And for those who need a quick refresher, we have couped Haiti on multiple times. And the kind of the most infamous one, the one that is truly outlandish, is the first ever democratically elected president in Haiti, Jean-Bertrand Aristide. We, along with other groups, Canada was involved, there were others, but we literally facilitated a coup in Haiti in 2004, threw him onto a U.S. military jet and dropped him in Africa. So that was one of our coup attempts. Anyway, so let me just finish reading this and I'll comment a little more.
Sorry, I had to jump in on that.
That's fine. In response, an agent told the men that the FBI could not help them because Haiti had to solve its own political problems. I assume the FBI said, that is a sovereign nation, good sir. We would never be involved in, meet me in the parking lot. We would never be involved in cooing a sovereign nation. I'm parked on the second floor of the parking deck. The revelation raised troubling questions about how much the U.S. government knew in advance of the killing. In court records, the government denied that it had any advance notice of a criminal plot. Okay, so let's think about this for a moment. Multiple American citizens. Now Moise was a moderate U.S. puppet. He was not like some kind of leftist who was saying get the empire out of our country. But apparently he was not making the oligarchy in Haiti very happy. So there are reasons the U.S. would have been fine with a coup taking him out. But beyond just that, they've admitted that they met with the FBI, that they asked the FBI for help with this coup. At least that's the way they're couching it. Then on top of that, they're admitting that one of these 4 was an FBI informant. So they've got his information coming to them at the least. And then if you scroll down a little more, and it's kind of like a throwaway line, there's one little Okay, let me read this part first. At the time of the assassination, Mr. Patel was an FBI informant, but the agency terminated its relationship with him after the killing, according to federal court documents. Yeah, they were like, maybe he shouldn't be an FBI informant.
But
after...
also, I just like to point out that this is very much how these intelligence agencies roll. They'll know or they'll orchestrate some shit, and then the fall guy will literally just fall.
Cut the ties.
I don't know this person. He has no connection to us. Kind of like Osama bin Laden worked for the FBI. So yeah.
For CIA. Yes.
What did I say?
FBI.
I'm sorry. The CIA. He was wanted by the. Was he wanted by the FBI or was that no? I guess he was wanted by the CIA, but he had worked for them earlier.
Yes.
Anyway, sorry. I thought okay.
Yeah. See, it's normally CIA is international, but there's some blurred lines.
Particularly with things that happen in Central and South America, the FBI is very often kind of entwined in that shit.
Right.
And a lot of that has to do with somebody had mentioned the Monroe Doctrine in the chat, and that basically just is a doctrine that the U.S. put forward that basically said, yeah, anything that happens in the Americas, like at all, that's us. Like we own that shit. That's ours. And so, yeah.
Right. But Biden did switch it. Donald Trump called it America's backyard, which has been a longstanding analysis by U.S. presidents. Oh, it's our backyard, so we get to do whatever we want. Biden said it's our front yard. So
Are you kidding?
No, I'm serious. It was changed. It was upgraded.
Wait, is that supposed to be more insidious or less?
Tough to say. I mean, I assume there's a garden gnome involved, but I don't know. But here's the line I wanted to show people. At least 3 other suspects in the case were former informants for the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration. So of the entirety of people arrested, which I didn't see the total number yet, but even if it's a couple dozen, 11 people. Okay, there it is. 11 people are in U.S. custody. Okay, so you have 11 people. One's an FBI informant. 3 are DEA informants. And you're telling me that the U.S. government either had nothing to do with this or didn't know it was going to happen. Like both. They both had nothing to do with it. They weren't involved in planning, and they didn't know it was going to happen, despite the fact that half of the fucking people involved were informants. Yeah. So, but the New York Times will not make that jump. They're just like, it's very fascinating that there's a few DEA informants and the FBI cut all ties.
And the other thing with like the media literacy side of things is that they make it sound like it's just a few players, right? And this is the folks might be familiar with the lone wolf syndrome. Anytime that there's a mass shooting or an extreme act of violence that's done by a neo-Nazi or a far right winger, it's always the lone wolf. They were just a lone wolf. This is a connected network of fascists and neo-Nazis and white supremacists. It's the same thing here. This is a connected network of people whose primary interest is to topple regimes or to play them like they're, pawns in chess for the interest and the profit of the United States. So to talk about it like as just these 4 guys who just had this weird idea in some fucking bar in Southern Florida, like it completely ignores the history and the present of the United States as a regime change Gestapo. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing is despite the fact that it's like if half of these people that have been arrested are informants, you start to think, okay, I think this might be connected to the U.S. government in some way. But then beyond that, what you just said, it's like we have a long history of all this shit. And right now we're trying to convince the world that it's fine for us and NATO and, Canada and others to send quote unquote peacekeepers down to Haiti to control their society, their system. It's like we've been doing this shit in Haiti since their independence, since they kicked out the Western powers, France specifically, and
they had to pay reparations too.
I was about to say that you are so good at like just snatching it. You're like, I see where the punchline goes,
I'm sorry,
you're like, I'm gonna take it.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You're like, it's like I'm shooting the ball in the hoop, and you're the guy who goes and does the little tip even when it's going in. So he gets credit for the basket, even though
Which is funny because I'm not good at basketball. I'm very sorry. If it makes you feel any better, you would probably say it way funnier than me. So please go ahead.
I wasn't gonna say it funny. I was gonna say it angry.
Oh,
Can I say it angry?
please.
Yeah. They had to pay fucking France.
I mean, crazy, right? Whoever heard of
you're like a hype man who's got his timing all wrong, so he's saying everything before the guy says it.
But I'm still hyping you. Isn't that what's important?
Thank you.
Isn't that what's? Don't you just
Thank
feel
you.
supported, regardless
Is
of the
it?
timeline?
No.
Don't you feel supported?
It's tough to say. So yeah, but they had to pay France billions of dollars because they got their independence and they were France's property. They were France's slaves, so they owed them billions of dollars. And they paid that into it was into the 60s or 70s. They paid it for fucking ever.
Their economy is a fucking mess, and that's not a very small reason as to why.
Yeah, part of the reason. So I wanted to bring you guys that update on what's been going on. It's been a long time since that assassination of Haiti's president. And the U.S. is just and even though it's covered in the New York Times, so that's mainstream media right there, right? I can't claim it's not covered in the mainstream media, but this is often how they do it with a story that they know they need to cover, but they don't really want people to think about, is you'll see one article like that, and how much is it plastered on CNN? How much 24/7 Fox News, CNN coverage are you getting on this? Fucking zero, but you get balloon all day long. Like, we have balloons. It's honestly what level of fucking juvenilia do you have to get to that they're just yelling balloons at us?
And where did you find that article? I'm kind of curious. I assume it wasn't a front page piece in the New York Times.
It might have been front page. Well, front page of the digital version. I don't know there was front page on the print edition, but often they can have something that's front page that's rather small. But yeah, so let's move on to another major story, probably the biggest story going on in America right now, and it's been ignored by our mainstream media. I've covered it on these live streams. Seymour Hersh's bombshell revelations that the U.S. took out the Nord Stream pipeline. So I've already gone through all that. If you want to see all the details of it, go check that out. But this is now, and Seymour Hersh, if you guys need reminding, is a legendary journalist.
Mm-hmm.
He broke the My Lai massacre story, other stories about Vietnam, stories about Watergate, stories about the Syrian chemical attacks that weren't real. He broke so many legendary stories, won a Pulitzer Prize. So this is not you can't just claim this is some rando who printed something. And anyway, Alan McLeod at Mint Press, my colleague at Mint Press, did an analysis of mainstream media and looked into how much they're ignoring Seymour Hersh's coverage. So corporate media have overwhelmingly ignored the Pulitzer Prize winning reporter's bombshell. McLeod analyzed 20 most influential publications in the United States, according to analytics company SimilarWeb, and found only 4 mentions of the report between all of them over all of those days. 4 mentions. The entirety of the corporate media's attention given to the story consisted of a 166-word mini report in Bloomberg, 1 5-minute segment on Tucker Carlson, which I tore apart Tucker Carlson the other day, so it's not like I'm a Tucker Carlson fan. He's got a tremendous number of awful problems with him.
This is just Alan pointing out that he
No. Well, I know, but my point is just, but he is at times, Tucker Carlson will go outside the mainstream media kind of Overton window, as he did when he did the segment on the CIA. Very well, his words, very well may have killed JFK. They did kill JFK, but it was the first time that mainstream media had ever done anything like that. So Tucker Carlson occasionally will do that. Will do these reports, which I will laud him when he does that. But he also is a racist piece of shit. So there's that side of things. Anyway, 600-word roundup in the New York Post, and a shrill Business Insider attack article whose headline labels Hersh as a discredited journalist who gave a gift to Putin. So those are the four coverage pieces of Seymour Hersh's incredible revelations. The Nord Stream attack was also one of the... Oh, I just thought I'd throw this in here because I failed to cover this aspect on my live stream. Nord Stream attack was also one of the world's worst ecological disasters, constituting the largest single leak of methane in history, a gas 80 times worse for the planet than carbon dioxide and accelerating climate change.
Yeah, I mean, I was wondering why, like, nobody was reporting on that aspect of it. And of course, you'd think if the U.S. was so eager to blame Russia for this, why not highlight how horrific it is that this was the largest methane leak in history? Well, it's kind of like why the Republicans and Democrats never blame each other for rigging elections, because they fucking do it too. So it's like the U.S. can't yell at Russia for this methane leak that they supposedly did, because there's methane leaking across the U.S. all the fucking time, constantly. I mean, just around L.A., there's methane leaking from the fracking fields. Like if you go around LAX,
right? If you do like a heat,
it's just fucking constant.
Not heat signature, but there's a type of visual that just shows the methane clouds, and it's horrific. Yeah,
I lived in that for 10 years. Maybe that's why I'm.
I mean, it's not like I was living in anything good in New York City.
That's
for
right.
10,
You were.
12
What
years.
was it called? Radiac.
Oh my God! Tangent, folks.
Sorry.
I lived in Brooklyn. I lived in Williamsburg, Brooklyn for over 4 years. And I saw a report on how, like a mention in a report on how the only New York City radioactive material disposal facility was in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. And I then looked at where it was on the map, and it's fucking... Oh no, I remember. I didn't even look where it was. I knew it was near me. I was like, oh shit, that road is like 2 blocks from me. I then went jogging like a couple of days later, and I see a sign on a door that just says Radiac, like a door that goes to the sidewalk. And in the video, the guy holds a Geiger counter up to the front door of Radiac, and it's like, yeah. So I don't know. I don't know that it's still there. If anyone's in Brooklyn,
actually glows in the dark, which is very festive.
I do. The ladies love it. All right, so I just wanted to give you guys that update on the Seymour Hersh story. Oh, and I can give you this update on the update about oil pipelines.
I sent this to you.
Well, I told you, you're doing amazing research. See, you act like you don't want credit, and then you do want credit.
Now you've got me expecting it. So now I'm like, by the way, this was found and
EleanorGoldfield.com.news.
Yeah, so I sent this to Lee, this headline, which reads, Russia and China agreed to a 30-year gas deal via new pipeline to be settled in euros. And I actually saw some video of the pipeline being built, which is horrifying. But
now the U.S. is going to attack it.
But I sent this to Lee, and I just wrote, so we wrecked Germany's energy infrastructure for no fucking reason. Because basically
we sped up what was happening that we were trying to stop.
The whole point of destroying Nord Stream was to cripple Russia economically, but that's not happening. And even more to the point, Russia and China have agreed, fuck the petrodollar, we're going to do this shit in euros. So
well, and they may soon do it in some sort of, they're working on they're working on some sort of currency that would be used between Russia and China. So euros may be the temporary.
Right.
But the US succeeded by bombing Nord Stream. The US succeeded in cutting off the energy supply, a lot of it from Russia to Europe, which has crippled Europe. So the US got what they wanted in that regard. But they had also thought this proxy war in Ukraine would possibly push China, if Russia invaded, push China into like stepping back and not working with Russia. But it's had the reverse effect, where Russia's gone, and China have gone running to each other saying like, well, these Americans are out of their fucking minds, so let's work together. So it's actually sped up the multipolar world that the US was fighting against. Russia has agreed to a 30-year contract to supply gas to China via new pipeline and will settle the new gas sales in euros, bolstering an energy alliance with Beijing amid Moscow's strained ties with the West. Yeah, this is Reuters, which generally does propaganda. Gazprom, which has a monopoly on Russian gas exports by pipeline, agreed to supply Chinese state energy major CNPC with 10 billion cubic meters of gas a year. And speaking of your Reuters, I forgot to say in that Alan McLeod article that the U.S. media is not covering the Seymour Hersh story, except for those 4 pieces, several of them trashing Hersh. But internationally, it's everywhere. So it's not like our mainstream media doesn't know about this story that the U.S. bombed Nord Stream. It's everywhere. And Reuters has done 14 articles on it while the U.S. pretends it hasn't happened. Now, McLeod makes the point that Reuters, all of the Reuters articles are trying to discredit Seymour Hersh, but still there's some coverage of it. And internationally, it's like in Germany, it's become a major thing. In Germany, they're yelling about it in parliament, the Seymour Hersh story. So,
and somebody just posted, isn't blowing up a pipeline an act of war? Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely it is. But this is kind of how the U.S. rolls. There's lots of acts of war that the U.S. perpetuates on a daily basis, I'd say. Be it drone bombing innocent civilians, blowing up gas pipelines, whatever, and has yet to really feel the pushback from it.
All right, we have several more stories we're getting to right now, including Samuel Alito's mom's satanic abortion clinic. You don't want to miss that one.
Spoiler alert.
Well, because I knew people would be like, what the fuck? But yes, we've got several more stories coming up right now. Massive protests in Madrid.
Don't give it all away.
They don't know the details.
I know, but it's like you're inviting somebody to a striptease and you invite them naked. Like, what's the point? No one's going to want to go.
They have no idea what I'm talking about yet.
I think you're giving away too much, personally.
All right. Rumble.com/LeeCamp. Join us over there, and it's free to watch, free to comment. Join us at rumble.com/LeeCamp. I will see you there. If you're already watching there, nothing changes. And please become a member at LeeCamp.net. That's the only way I keep these shows going. All right. Do you want to read about satanic abortion clinic?
Okay, so